Hey, how's it going? So today's not Monday, it's Tuesday. The holiday hit, and uh, I just the idea of getting in the truck and driving for 20 minutes so I could shoot a video just did not seem like a good plan for the day. So you're gonna get this week's video a day late. I apologize. Hope I didn't mess up anybody's week. So today's Monday, and I'm gonna tell you a story that I've told a handful of people, an idea that I had, and I began writing this idea down. It started with a single thought, and it was just a fleeting thought that I kind of dwelled on, and then I created a scenario for the thought, and then I decided that it was interesting, so I wrote it down and then began to add to it until I had an outline, and then decided that I was going to write a book. So the premise of this book is, and the story, the idea originally started with a guy who essentially was me, my personality, and he is really upset. He's just left a scenario where his children invited him to one of their birthday parties, and he shows up, and his ex-wife is like, well, what are you doing here? And he's like, the kid said you said it was okay. And she's like, no, you need to leave. So the guy's like, well, let me at least give them their gift. And so he gives them their gift. And he leaves, and he's bummed, and the kids are bummed, and he's driving home, and he's in his truck, and he's the scenario that I had in my head was a store that doesn't exist anymore, but off of 7th Street and Bell, right by Lookout Mountain, there used to be a Fry's. And the idea originally, that's how long ago this story, I started this. The guy pulls up to the light at 7th Street and Bell. And is it 7th Street? Yeah. There used to be a Fry's there. And he's not paying attention. He's in deep thought. And all of a sudden, he looks up and he realizes that the oncoming traffic has stopped way up the street, and people are getting out of their cars. And then he kind of looks to his right. He's in the left-hand turning lane, heading west on Bell, turning left onto 7th Street. And as he looks to his right, he sees the same thing. The cars have stopped way up the road, and people are getting out of his car. And then he kind of looks up and realizes a bright light on his car. And what he doesn't realize is that there were reports of a UFO, and that the UFO was coming over Phoenix, kind of like the lights, the Phoenix lights, but it would be the opposite direction, coming from the south, heading north, coming over Lookout Mountain, and then stopping on the truck because everybody else stopped ahead of time, and that truck was just sitting there, I guess, was the idea. And then the guy gets this feeling like run, go. But then he also gets a feeling like calm, everything's gonna be okay. And he puts his truck in the park, and he opens the door, and he looks out, and a flashlight, and then that's the end of the scene. And what I didn't know at the time is I started doing all of this alien research about abductions and all this stuff. And I spent a long period of time researching this stuff till late at night on work nights. I found myself actually consumed by it. I came across the Phil Schneider story. I came across a bunch of random stuff. The alien interview, these deep rabbit holes, and it got to the point where I was having a tough time concentrating at work. At one point, I was overseeing a project, and I just could not focus on work. I just was consumed by this these crazy stories I was finding, and getting more information, and finding other people who had seen the same thing. And what I didn't realize at the time until doing this research was that it had never happened before. Nobody had ever videotaped an abduction. And part of the idea was that they caught it on the cameras of the store. It was legit and it was all over, and people were recording it with their phones. And so it was basically seen by everyone across the entire planet. And this guy gets abducted. And so the next scene is a couple days later, and the president is going to have he's going to give he's going to address the nation. And he's outside. He's probably in the garden or something like that at the White House, and he's standing at the podium, and there's press, and everybody's watching, and they're getting ready to get started. And as he's getting ready to go on stage, somebody, he whispers to somebody, "What's the guy's name again?" And he repeats the guy's name. And he gets up on the stage and he begins to address the nation about this abduction. People are scared, and everybody saw it, and it's unrefutable. And as this is going on, there's a commotion, and people start freaking out. And then all of a sudden, they realize that there's something falling out of the sky, and the thing that is falling out of the sky turns out to be the guy who was abducted. And he basically lands at this press conference like it's nothing. And he of course, Secret Service is freaking out, and they got their guns drawn, and he's like, "I apologize, I didn't mean to startle everybody." And it's the guy who was just abducted. And the idea is, the outline of the story was he's gone for a long time. There's visible signs that it's the same person, but he's different. He's older, and the whole thing is he's trying to get back to his kids, and he's been, he goes to this gnarly adventure, and I wrote it all out in the timeline, and then eventually finds his way back home, and then actually finds his way back to the same date and time, but he misses it because he ends up going to the date and time, but a different place in the solar system. So now he's got to travel back, and so he gets here a couple of days later, and that's why he shows up at the at the press conference instead of when he actually got abducted. And the whole thing was trying to get back to his kids. And this idea of this I don't know, person. And I felt like at the time when I was writing all this down, which I'd actually lost all the work I'd put into it for a long time, I just recently came across little snippets of it, of things that I had jotted down, notes, part of the timeline, like an early version of the timeline. So I don't know, I'm kind of beyond that. I don't think I'm gonna finish that. I think that if I was gonna spend my time, I would do it. There's other better things that I could spend my time on. But I know that I had told that story to a handful of people that thought it was a great idea, and it was a great story, and that it could make a great story. So I thought I would share that with you guys. I don't know. I guess maybe if it turns out that people are like, "I'd like to see that come to fruition, or I'd like to see how that happens, then maybe I'll finish it. Now that I have enough pieces to put the whole thing, the original thought together, and not have to reinvent the wheel, I wouldn't be opposed to it. I just don't have a lot of time. Time is not on my side. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Today is Tuesday, so you're gonna get this a little bit late. But I got a good one for you next week. Anyways, stay prayed up. Peace.